When my husband and I bought this condo back in 2019, my outrageous goal at the time was to have our mortgage paid off by the time our 5-year loan term was up. This was truly absurd because at the time I was barely making any money from my YouTube channel. In fact, in 2019, I made just over $20,000, mostly from freelance video gigs and a little trickle of AdSense. But with determination and a healthy dose of delusion, over the following years, I grew my YouTube channel and my income, and by last summer, we were able to pay off our mortgage in full at the end of 5 years. And today, I want to tell you how we did it. Okay, before I get into the financial strategies for both growing your income as a content creator and how to use that income to both invest and pay off debt while still having a life, I just want to put my cards on the table and walk you through the actual numbers of how much our mortgage was for and how we actually paid it off. These strategies, I feel, are relevant no matter the exact financial situation, but I'm kind of a numbers nerd and I'm very passionate about financial transparency, so I'm just going to tell you. So we bought our cute little 500 square foot condo back in 2019 for $295,000-ish. Quick reminder that all the numbers in this video and any of my videos are in Canadian dollars because I live in Canada. If this seems like kind of a random number, it was. We were in a little bit of a bidding war and this is the absolute top dollar we could come up with at the time. We made a down payment of $59,150. Again, looking back, I'm like, couldn't we have gotten this up to 60? But this is all the money we had. Therefore, our total mortgage amount was for $236,600. And just in case you're curious, because I find this stuff interesting, the interest rate that we got at the time was 3.19%, which compared to what is currently available, at least where I live, this is really good. So this is what we ended up owing. Let's talk about how we paid it off. So back when we first got this mortgage in 2019, I did the math and I figured out that if we paid all of our bi-weekly payments, which of course I knew we had to do, and we maxed out those $35,000 lump sum payments each year, then we would be able to fully pay off our mortgage within 5 years. And once I had that goal in mind, I just really latched onto it. So we chose the route of bi-weekly accelerated payments for our mortgage, which meant that every 2 weeks we were paying $571.45 towards it. On a typical month, that works out to $1,142.90. And the way bi-weekly accelerated payments work, if you're not familiar, is that since you're doing it every 2 weeks, it means that there's going to be 2 bonus payments each year because there'll be 2 months where you sort of have 3 payments go out just because of how the schedule falls, which this would also align with any months where you get 3 paychecks in a month if you work a typical 9 to 5, which my husband does. Okay, so with this payment schedule, that means over the course of a year, you're paying $14,857 towards your mortgage. In addition to the bi-weekly accelerated payment schedule, we also had the option to make additional prepayments toward the mortgage of up to $35,000 each year. This was a great little feature of our mortgage agreement because it meant we could make these big payments toward the principal of the loan, and ultimately this is what allowed us to pay it off so quickly. So basically that means each year that's another $35,000 maximum that you can pay towards the mortgage. If you do more than this, then there are fees or penalties basically. Again, in the case of our specific mortgage, it's going to be different for each agreement. So then this is our yearly contributions, which across the full 5 years, this totals $74,288 in the bi-weekly payments. And of course, the $35,000 across 5 years, that's $175,000. And if you add this up, you'll see that it totals $249,288, which for those of you keeping track at home is actually more than the total that we owed. Which meant that even if we couldn't afford to max out these prepayments every single year, which honestly we didn't, especially not at the beginning, we would still be able to pay off the full amount within 5 years. And actually at the very end of the 5 years, when we went to renegotiate it, we actually did still have a remaining balance of about $25,000, which we just paid off as a separate lump sum at the very end. And that was because in the early years, we couldn't fully max this out back in 2019, 2020. And I feel like that just really goes to show actually how much my income transformed over those 5 years, which we're gonna talk about more in just a minute. Now, I feel like I need to make some important disclaimers and tell you honestly honestly how we were able to pay off that mortgage in 5 years, because I feel like there's some specific circumstances that I need to acknowledge here. But first, I really want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Lead Pages, which honestly is perfect because if you're working on building a business right now that generates consistent revenue so that you can reach your financial goals, Lead Pages can help. Lead Pages is a performance-driven lead generation platform designed to help you and your team capture leads, convert traffic, and generate sales. Lead Pages is more than just a page builder though. It has helpful tools for every stage of a campaign, from your very first ideas up until you're generating sales and analyzing your analytics. I recently built a new landing page for my digital product, the Content Creator Starter Kit, and Lead Pages makes it so easy to create something beautiful and professional in minutes, and something that I can be confident is going to convert. You probably already know that you should have a lead magnet to grow your email list, but maybe you're feeling stuck with getting it set up. Lead Pages has a library of over 250 beautiful templates that are proven to generate 5 times the conversion rate of the industry average. And I love that when you're building your own page, you can check out the lead meter, and it'll give you a little assessment of how well your page is going to perform based on over 10 years of Lead Pages data. Lead Pages users generate an average of over 12 new leads per day, so go to tryleadpages.co/Katie Steckly to try your first 14 days for free and start generating more leads for your business. And thanks to Lead Pages for sponsoring today's video. Okay, at this point I think it's important to share some disclaimers so you have the proper context for my mortgage payoff story. Number 1, I know this is not a very big mortgage, but this is not a very big home. I actually remember at the time we could have qualified for like a slightly more expensive place, but we intentionally really did not want to spread ourselves too thin and be putting too much of our income towards housing costs. And I just bring this up to say, like, yes, I recognize that it's going to be easier for me to pay off my like $200K mortgage than it would be for you to pay off your $500K mortgage, for example. Fair enough. Let's not compare to each other. I recognize like that is a bigger feat. So just to put this in context. Okay, number 2, I am so privileged. Trust me, I know this. I recognize it. I wake up every day grateful for it. The financial security that I've found through this career of being a content creator is incredible to me. I never honestly would have expected to be making the kind of money that I do now. Like, it seriously blows my mind. And yeah, I feel like I won the lottery for real. And disclaimer number 3, I didn't do this alone. I have, as aforementioned, a husband. His name is Dan. He's had a secure tech job for the entire time that we've had this mortgage. And in fact, we qualified for this mortgage on his income alone because at the time, my freelance income was not stable enough, or honestly, just enough money for us to even bother submitting it to the bank. So with all of that out in the open, now let me show you exactly how we paid it off in 5 years. So we're gonna build a pie chart here that represents our total housing costs across the entire 5 years. And to start us off, Dan's regular paycheck covered those bi-weekly $570-ish payments that I was mentioning before. So that's our bi-weekly payments that across the 5 years totaled $74,000-ish. And my contribution to the mortgage with my content creation income was those lump sum payments each year. So that's our prepayments totaling $175,000 across 5 years. Now jumping back to what Dan's paycheck covered, we also have condo fees living here, which I calculated across the 5 years have cost us like $35,000, just about. And finally, no matter where you live, you got to pay property taxes. That's this chunk of the pie. And that was like $13,000. Now, the way we were able to budget for this is all of this stuff, the kind of like base level recurring, you've got to pay it no matter what kind of stuff, was coming out of Dan's paycheck. And then these lump sum prepayments, because they were optional and because my income, especially at the beginning, was very unpredictable, that's what we allocated my income towards when I had it and when like we had enough to do that. Otherwise, I just want to mention this whole idea of like who paid what. At the end of the day, we're a couple with fully combined finances, so it's not like we're keeping track of who's covering what part of things. It's more just from a cash flow and budgeting perspective that Dan had a very reliable recurring income all this time and mine was very volatile and uncertain. So it made more sense to allocate mine towards the part that was optional and that we could like really max it out when I had the opportunity to. But if the money wasn't there, then it wasn't like crucial because like I said, it's optional. I know that every couple manages finances differently, but that's just like how we approach things. Like at the end of the day, it's all together. We don't think about like who pays for what, but yeah, this is just how we budgeted for it. Okay, so this is the breakdown of like how exactly we covered all of these costs, but how did we actually have the extra money to allocate to, especially this part? That's what I want to talk about next. And the way I see it, there's basically three main reasons, or I guess like three main components to this financial strategy. And that is number one, increasing income. Number two, lowering expenses. And number three, prioritizing the mortgage. And I'm going to talk about each of these in detail and the strategy behind them. Starting with how I increased my income, which is honestly probably the biggest component of all three. Okay, so I'll be honest with you, increasing my income was by far the most significant contributor to us being able to pay off our mortgage so quickly. I just want to say I'm a bit of a personal finance nerd, so I love watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts about personal finance. And just let me say, in the space in general, there is usually way too much emphasis on the lowering expenses side of the strategy. The truth is, there is no way that if I hadn't increased my income, we were going to penny pinch our way to contributing an additional $175,000 to our mortgage over the course of 5 years. It doesn't matter how many lattes I don't drink. If you don't have that money in the first place, how are you supposed to save it and then put it towards your mortgage? Which, speaking of the lattes thing, one time I calculated it and I figured out that if I drank like a latte from my favorite local coffee shop every day for a whole year, it would cost me like $3,000. So that's not even close to the $35,000 that I actually put towards the mortgage. This is why I'm so passionate about the creator economy, because I think it provides a way for so many people to be able to increase their income and work towards their financial goals. Whether you just make part-time side hustle money off of YouTube, or if it becomes your full-time job, it's a creative, flexible opportunity for you to be able to make that extra money, which is such a huge component in this whole thing. Like, it's not just all about trying to save as much as you can, because if you don't have it, how do you save it? Okay, so I want to get into the details about how exactly I increased my income from around $20,000 in 2019 to over $300K in 2024. Okay, the biggest thing I did was grow my audience online. This is absolutely the foundational step in increasing your income as a content creator. Back in 2019, when my income was about $20,000, my subscriber count was right around like 3,000, I think, when I started off the year. At the time, I was posting 2 YouTube videos per week, non-negotiable. I was doing this while I was doing freelance client work that utilized my skills as a content creator, so I was doing a lot of like videography stuff. And when I finally had a video perform well, I chased after that niche, watched my analytics, paid attention to my comment section. I treated YouTube like it was a job before it ever was one, and I never let myself stop posting just because I didn't feel like it. And then after that initial growth spurt, I continued to experiment and pay attention to what the audience wanted. Basically all of the stuff that if you watch my content creator strategy videos, you've heard this all before. That's what I implemented. Alongside growing my audience, the second thing I did was introduce new income streams. It's not enough to just get a ton of views. You also need to craft an intentional business model. Early on for me, it was all about freelance work. That was my most direct way for getting paid for my content creator skills. So early on, my content was to some degree about attracting new clients. Like, I talked about videography, social media strategy, all the different stuff that I would do as a service. And it did help me get new clients. So as my YouTube channel grew and I had more client work than I could take on my own, that's how my agency, Creatorly Media, began. And now it's a boutique video editing agency, so if you're a YouTuber looking for an editor, reach out, creatorlymedia.com. Then along my journey, AdSense also started to become a more significant contributor as my views grew. And then I got my first few brand deals, and that has become like the most significant income stream for me. At first, it was very haphazard and unreliable, but eventually I made a very conscious decision to develop a system around my brand deals. And it's because I implemented this system that brand deal revenue became my biggest source of income. Basically, I developed this brand partnerships tracker template where I would keep track of every single brand that reached out to me, who the contact was, what kind of content they were interested in working on, what date they reached out. I would keep track of all of my follow-ups because I would be very intentional about pursuing those follow-ups to get the deal signed. And I started intentionally scheduling slots into my content calendar for those brand deals and doing my best to fill them up months in advance. It was really after implementing my brand deal system that my income truly blew up. It was early 2022 when I developed the brand partnership system that I use now. And that year I made about $90,000 in income, but it was really the following years where that truly started to pay dividends, because in 2023, my profit was just over $260,000. At the end of the day, this chart is really the story of how we were able to pay off our mortgage early. And I feel like the crux of that story was implementing the systems that I did back in 2022 that have helped me to systematically increase my income and scale my audience over time. The cool thing is, if you want to use the same brand partnerships tracker template that totally transformed my business's revenue, I have included it in my content creator starter kit, which is my little digital product bundle. I'll link it in the description below. I've just recently done a big refresh of it that includes a 12-month plan to help you go from hobby content content creator to full-time. And really this bundle just includes all of the systems, strategies, and templates and resources that I've used to transform my business. So check it out. It's linked below. But I really feel like there's just a snowball effect with a lot of this stuff. Once you implement certain systems and routines around these parts of your business model, and you pair that with continuing to grow your audience, it just grows and grows over time. Number 2, we tried to keep our expenses low-ish. Okay, so like I said, I really feel that making more money is the bigger piece of this puzzle, but it's not the only one. Because of course, if you make more money, but you just end up spending it in different ways and not contributing it to your mortgage, you still won't have your mortgage paid off. So we intentionally tried to keep our lifestyle expenses low-ish. And I have to say ish because I really don't feel like we live this incredibly frugal lifestyle or anything. Travel is a big priority for us, and we definitely spend money on that for sure. However, we did have a few pretty significant years at the beginning of our mortgage where we weren't traveling at all, so we were forced to save that money anyway. But besides that, I did want to share some examples of ways that we try to avoid lifestyle creep, which allows us to save a greater portion of our income and allot a bunch of that towards paying off our mortgage. Okay, so for one, we have no car payment. We were very lucky to inherit my husband's grandfather's little car back in early 2020 when he decided to stop driving. Before that, we didn't own a car at all. So for like the first year of our marriage when we were just renting, and for the first little bit when we lived here, we didn't have a car. We just took public transit or we used our local like car share program. But yeah, we still drive that 2010 Chevrolet Cobalt and it serves us well. Second one, we don't shop as a hobby. It's just not part of our routine or our weekly life. We're not just like going out shopping for the sake of the activity. And to that end, we really consider any large purchases carefully. Anything over like probably $200, we're gonna like discuss it and think about it and definitely not just like buy it on a whim. Also, we have a small space, so we really don't have a lot of extra room to accumulate stuff. I really can't go out and just buy random like home decor or kitchen items because I literally have nowhere to put it. Trust me, I've been thinking about getting an air fryer for a long time, but I was like, no girl, just use the toaster oven. There is literally nowhere to store an air fryer in this home. I think living in a small space just naturally guides you towards not overbuying. Also, we make spending plans or like mini budgets. Like I said, we're not being crazy frugal, but we do plan when we're gonna spend a large sum of money. When we went on our Japan trip, for example, I developed a bit of a budget. I figured out the estimated cost of the trip through some research. So going into the whole trip, I knew that the style of trip that we wanted to do of 3 weeks in Japan was going to cost us probably around $13,000 Canadian all in. That's for 2 people. And because I'm a bit of a numbers nerd, I track all of our spending when we are traveling, and then I make reports up at the end of each trip to break down exactly how much we spent on accommodations, flights, transportation, activities, food, all of that stuff. Our total for the Japan trip, by the way, ended up being $12,488 Canadian dollars. So if you're curious if my estimates are close. But yeah, before we booked anything, I was analyzing what this would cost us and then deciding if we wanted to spend that money. Part 3 of the mortgage payoff strategy, we prioritized the mortgage. But honestly, that's not always the best call. It maybe wasn't even the best call in our situation, but let's talk about that. Okay, so when you implement the first 2 parts of this strategy, you have your higher income and you've lowered your expenses. Obviously, that frees up additional funds that you can allocate to whatever you would like. In this case, we really prioritized paying off the mortgage, but you do have other options. Other options which maybe will be more financially advantageous to you. You can always pay off debt, like a mortgage, or you could invest. And the most financially strategic thing really depends on the interest rates. Let's just use a really simple example to demonstrate this. If you have investments that are doing, for example, like about a 10% annual return, which is like roughly what our investments have been like the past couple of years, and you have a mortgage rate that's, like mine was, 3.19%, then you would actually be smarter to put that money towards your investments than towards paying off your mortgage. And that's because you will actually make more money off of the increase you're seeing in your investments than you would save by paying off your mortgage earlier. It's basically like a scale of which interest rate is higher. If your debt is accumulating interest faster than what you would be earning in your investments, then you should pay that off first. But if your investments are growing faster than your debt is growing, then you're better off capitalizing on that. If you want a more in-depth explanation of this with exact numbers, I would highly recommend checking out this video that Vox made about it recently. I feel like it explains it better than I could. So it's because of this that that I honestly think the next mortgage we have, which yes, I think there'll be a next one. We're not going to live here forever. We might not take the same aggressive payoff approach, but there's something psychologically that just hits different with debt payoff than with investing. In some ways, investing is just growth and growth and growth to nowhere, because even if you have like a number goal in mind, it's so easy for you to always just want to see it get higher and higher. But with debt payoff, there's a very specific goal, which is getting that number down to 0. And when you finally do that, such a big dopamine hit. But for me though, it really is about having that super low base level of like monthly expenses. That's what really appealed to me about paying off our mortgage. I love the idea of having this really tiny number of like my necessary spending, because it just makes me feel like I'm carrying relatively little risk. Like, yes, maybe I will spend more than that any given month, but the necessary bills that I have to pay are little, and then that makes me feel safe. Like now that our mortgage is paid off in total, all bills, all in, it costs us just about $1,000 a month to live here. So while we certainly prioritize the mortgage, though I do want to say not to the detriment of like not having invested at all, because we were fortunate to also have additional funds to put into investments, it's not always the best call to just prioritize paying off your mortgage like no holds barred. You really should think about the interest you could earn through investing versus what is gaining on your mortgage, and let that kind of play into the equation. If you want to know more of the details of my business, like how much revenue it makes, what my expenses are, even down to the details of how much I pay in taxes, I made a whole video breaking that down. So you might want to check that out next if you're into these finance related videos. Like I said, I'm kind of a personal finance nerd, so I would love to make more content like this. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions you'd like to see answered, or any topic ideas for future videos around money. Cause yeah, I just find it interesting to talk about, and like low-key, I think I might become an accountant in a second career someday. We'll see. And like I said before, if you're looking for an editor to help you with editing your YouTube videos, you should come and work with my team. Creatorly Media does currently have a few spots open for a few more recurring editing clients, so check out the details of that at the link in the description. And as always, I hope you're having adventures and following your dreams, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!